memorial growing.
In the state of Texas, suffering in a van or trailer.
At the site where more than 4 dozen migrants were found dead. A lawsuit from loved ones.
We've got to get to the bottom of what happened here to this family.
After a parasailing tragedy in the Keys. And the tribute to Ukraine.
It's about spreading that care for something other than ourselves.
From here in South Florida. These stories and more coming up on Newsbreak.
Hello, South Florida. I'm Amanda Gray.
I'm Paloma Pimentel. Today is June 30th, 2022.
Live from the South Florida Media Network's Biscayne-based studios in North Miami, this is SFMN Newsbreak.
Tribute after tragedy, flowers and other items left at the site where the bodies of more than 50 migrants were found in the back of an abandoned truck. The death toll of migrants who died after being left abandoned inside a big rig in the sweltering Texas heat has risen to 53.
Republicans blame Biden's immigration policies for the loss of life. Our D.C. Bureau reporter Yvette Franco brings the latest reaction from Washington, D.C.
Horrifying and heartbreaking, this is how President Joe Biden described the death of the migrants in Texas.
The floor of the trailer, it was just completely covered in bodies.
After suffering the worst migrant smuggling crisis in the United States, Texas officials are implementing new tactics to try to prevent another tragedy from unfolding.
Strike teams of DPS special agents to conduct surveillance and look for these cloned vehicles, stolen vehicles that are staged along the highways used to smuggle people.
Texas governor is pointing the finger at President Biden, claiming the crisis at the U.S. border is growing more chaotic.
President Biden was warned in advance that reduced border enforcement would lead to dire consequences. The Border Patrol does not have the resources to be able to inspect all of the trucks.
Texas Democratic Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia claims it is the governor who has failed at the border.
He has put together a border plan and has spent billions of dollars since Rick Perry was in office on the border, but obviously something's gone wrong.
Now, Texas governor says they're waiting for the Supreme Court's decision on whether Biden can terminate the remaining Mexico policy.
Texas can take legal action and go to court to hold the president, to hold Secretary Mayorkas and other operatives in the federal government in contempt of court if they fail to live up to that order.
The White House said President Joe Biden is planning to meet with the president of Mexico to discuss further on immigration policies. From Washington, D.C., reporting for the South Florida Media Network, Yvette Franco.
A historic day as Miami's Ketanji Brown Jackson becomes the first Black woman to become a justice on the United States Supreme Court. She will be the 104th associate judge and is standing out in the court's long history of mostly white male justices. Jackson's swearing-in ceremony is happening midday as Justice Stephen Breyer begins his retirement. Before her ceremony, the court is expected to release its final rulings of the session, including 2 big cases involving immigration and environmental policy.
A lawsuit is on the books this morning following a tragic parasailing mishap in the Keys. The family, who is from Illinois, is suing a parasailing company after their loved one died in an accident. The Haggard law firm announced on Tuesday that they filed a wrongful death lawsuit on behalf of Supraja Alaparthi's estate, as well as personal injury lawsuits on behalf of her 10-year-old son and 9-year-old nephew. The 3 were parasailing near Key West when, according to officials, a strong gust of wind brought too much air into the parachutes. The boat captain cut the line tethered to the 3 and they fell in the water, where the parachute then proceeded to drag the woman and the 2 boys into a bridge. Alaparthi died and the 2 children were hurt.
All they tried to do was take the trip of a lifetime, and the matriarch of the family loses her life in an unexplainable, horrific accident that could have been prevented in 10 different ways.
The lawsuit accuses the company, Lighthouse Parasail, of improperly training its workers to check the weather and warn the family of the risks.
At 11:59 tonight, several bills passed during the last legislative session in Tallahassee become law. In addition to the state budget, these new laws include a first trimester abortion restriction, school safety, parental rights and education, which critics call the Don't Say Gay law, loud music in vehicles, a public smoking restriction, a family support law named Responsible Fatherhood, a series of tenant protection law named after murdered Flanagan High alumni Maya Marcano, and a person finance education law.
A complete jury has been selected in the penalty phase of the murder trial for the gunman in the Parkland school shooting. 9 women and 1 man were chosen to serve as alternates yesterday, a day after 5 women and 7 men were selected to sit on the jury. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas' mass shooter, Nicolas Cruz, will either get life in prison or the death penalty when the sentencing begins next month.
A man is facing charges this morning after he's accused of trespassing at former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach. 53-year-old Donald Cleveland was arrested yesterday after the Palm Beach police got a complaint of someone trespassing nearby. The former president lives at the estate but was not home at the time.
The Marlins trying to rally for a win in the 9th inning.
That's still ahead, and so is the story.
The whole concept of the Westchester Cultural Arts Center was to bring the community together, and what better way to raise funds for Ukraine than through the arts?
Songs from South Florida sending a message of support to Ukraine. Newsbreak will be back in 2 minutes.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
If you love me enough to tolerate my perfect little pets and all their glorious dander, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
When I was growing up, my mom was extremely tidy. We were trained to put things back where we got them from. One day, when I walked into my mom's house, I felt like I walked to someone else's house. There was stuff everywhere. And just growing up the way I grew up and to see this transition was very alarming.
When Sean talked to me, it was a wake-up call, and that's when I went to the doctor.
The sound of support being belted out from South Florida with the hopes of being heard half a world away. The performance was for the people of Ukraine.
It was last night at the Westchester Cultural Arts Center inside Tropical Park. As Russia's war on Ukraine enters its 4th month of fighting, Ukrainian women and children have been disproportionately affected by the war. The United Nations reported that more than 5.2 million refugees have fled Ukraine, half of all refugees being children. I'm here at the Westchester Cultural Arts Center where Miami residents have gathered in support of the women and children affected by the war in Ukraine. The tribute to Ukraine brings together the FIU Wolfsonian Public Humanities Lab, the Westchester Cultural Arts Center, and the Roxy Theater Group in a night of music, drama, and poetry in support of the Ukrainian Trust Chain. The Ukraine Trust Chain delivers humanitarian aid to Ukrainians in active war zones, and 100% of the donations from this tribute are going to these efforts. Philip Church, Associate Professor of Theater at FIU, shared his reasoning for putting on the fundraiser.
It's about spreading that care for something other than ourselves.
Among the FIU performers is Charles Southers, a theater graduate who is now the co-founder and artistic director of the Roxy Theater Group, a nonprofit providing training for kids 3 to 17.
The whole concept of the Westchester Cultural Arts Center was to bring the community together, and what better way to raise funds for Ukraine than through the arts?
One of the topics addressed frequently was the importance of connection. Poet Julia Kozinski-Dashback, who emigrated from Dnipro, Ukraine as a Jewish refugee in 1993, created the Dear Ukraine Project, an online space for people to write poems and share them with Ukrainians.
Bridges not only the gap between nations, but also between time frames, between histories. It's just something that's able to cross boundaries in a way unlike any other genre.
The overarching theme of this tribute was the power of art and its ability to transcend violence. The money raised from this event is going towards providing meals, transportation, and evacuations to Ukrainians in active war zones.
Today, the Miami Marlins celebrate beating the St. Louis Cardinals after losing the previous 2 games in the series. The Fish were back at Busch Stadium looking for redemption. For most of the game, the Fish were down by 1 run until they were able to come back and take over the lead in the final inning of the game. Final score, Miami 4, St. Louis 3. The Marlins have the day off and play in D.C. tomorrow night.
That's all the time we have for Newsbreak. I'm Amanda Gray.
And I'm Paloma Pimentel. Get more news anytime at sfmn.fiu.edu.